Welcome to M&G Agency Life, your regular dose of creativity, insights, and all things Mearns and Gill.
Join us on this whirlwind journey through the world of marketing, design, and digital.
We'll also talk brand, events, media, and lots more.
Like what happens behind the scenes?
Yeah, and the latest industry trends, we've got you covered.
So get ready to dive into the world of agency.
Right, shall we do this?
Oh, heck yes. Welcome to episode 3 of M&G Agency Life. Last week we had the podcast about podcasts, and this week we're going to be focusing on brand.
Yes, we are. And joining us in the podcast room are two people that we like very much. It's Cam and Poppy. Welcome.
Oh, hello.
Hi there.
Thanks for coming along.
Thanks for having us.
How are you both?
Yeah,
We're good. Yeah, I'm pumped.
As we're talking about brand today, I've taken into the podcast room to share with you guys two brands that I'm very fond of. I've got some Red Bull, a can of Red Bull for everybody.
Love it.
And some Jelly Babies.
Love it.
Go wrong, can
Now,
you?
I'm not sure how this is going to work in the podcast by the end of it when we're all flying on Red Bull. But hey, you got to try these things.
It'll work.
Absolutely. I've not had a Red Bull in a while, so this will be interesting.
Right. Well, I'm excited to see how this will go.
So yeah, I guess we go on to introductions. Start with you, Poppy.
I am one of the designers at Mearns & Gill, working a team. There is 4/3 of us, depending where Cam is.
What do you love about your job?
I love the variation day to day. So I'm involved in quite a few different, there's loads of different projects always happening at once. But yeah, probably like the different clients, the different types of work that we work on. Being able to be like creative and stuff is obviously top of things I enjoy. But yeah, just being able to work with clients and try and solve problems and figure out the best way of tackling things. And yeah, just the variety is all.
I'm a big fan of your work, Poppy, because you designed the brand for M&G Agency Life. You created the cover artwork and the brand. So it was weird because I was kind of your client.
You were.
How was I as a client?
You were a good client. On the whole, you were good. You had your vision. You had opinions.
I interfered too much, didn't I?
You didn't actually. You actually led us to a great place. Sometimes opinions are tricky. No, honestly, it was good. It was helpful, and yeah, you were a good client. I'd take you on again.
All right. Well, I'll take that. Very kind of you. Let's move on to Cam. Cam, tell us a little bit about your role, what you love about it, and all of that.
Yeah, so my official title here is the digital lead, but it doesn't just end with digital marketing. So I started off my life here at Mearns & Gill as a designer. So my background is with brand and design. So I've kind of still got a foot in the studio, but then I also get involved with the marketing side too. So it's a really great variety of a role that I have. I really enjoy connecting people to brands, like finding out that sort of like constant thread throughout. So when we do workshops with clients, which I think we'll maybe cover later, it's finding that like common theme that they love about their business and how to sort of communicate that to the world and find meaning. So that's what I really enjoy.
I look forward to digging into this more later on. And you're very much, as well as being our digital lead, you're pretty much our brand guru in-house.
I wouldn't go that far.
And as well as that, Cam, you have got amazing hair.
Thank you, Pete.
What's the secret? What product do you use?
It's actually a mix, but my most recent one that I found is some sea salt spray.
Right, okay.
Nice.
Yeah. That's a new thing for me.
Before you blow dry or after?
I've experimented with both, but I tend to put it on before. So straight out the shower, little spritz.
Do we need to do our own men's grooming podcast, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect candidates.
Yeah. I actually, when I went, because I've recently just got my hair cut, and when I did go in, I showed them a picture of you to model my hair on.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. Right, I think we've peaked on the intro section of the podcast.
Yeah, so I mean, let's get into it. Let's start with Cam. What is a brand? Tell us more.
That's a really interesting question. So a lot of people don't know how to define a brand. A lot of people think a brand is a logo or a color or like messaging or like any of like the marketing. So a lot of people don't actually know how to define it, and it's quite a hard thing to define. But the best way I've heard about it is it's someone's gut feeling towards a company, product, or service. So we can actually influence that along all these different various touch points. It's another way to think about it is it's the company's like reputation, essentially, so everyone within the company can actually influence the brand, right down to the person who answers the phone, all the way up to like the managing director of the company. So there's lots of different ways to influence and how to get your brand out there. It's actually not what the company says their brand is. It's actually what other people say their brands are. So yeah, it's like that like it's like a subtle little mind shift. Like you can try and influence what your brand is, but it's actually what other people. So it's why like I love Apple because I'm a designer, obviously. Yeah. So and Pete, if you love Apple, we can both love Apple, but we can have different perspectives on it because we've had different experiences with it. So it's something that lives within the hearts and minds of your audience.
That's really interesting. I've heard brand summed up in a different way. Cam, you're probably going to hate me for this, and it's probably quite cheesy, but I've heard the line, a brand is a collection of perceptions in the mind of the consumer. And I guess that's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. So let's talk about the different kind of brand projects, Cam and Poppy, that you guys might face day to day here at Mearns & Gill. So brand identity to start with, I guess. Any thoughts on that? How does a brand identity project look?
So typically how a brand project starts is a company will come to us with a particular problem, and whether that problem is they are pivoting to a different industry, or they're not connecting with their audience as well as they like, or they've hit a growth plateau, and they've basically come to us with a certain like pain point or problem.
Okay.
So it's down to us to really try and find out what the pain point is, try and uncover it in simple language, and then we take it into like sort of the design process. So it typically starts with a brand workshop.
So how long does a brand project take?
I guess it varies again. Like we have some brand projects which are like a lot more extensive, a lot more kind of like needed, and they're kind of starting way back from the start. And then there's brands that are kind of a bit more established that I guess require less work, but still the same process, but maybe in a different way.
Yeah, I think for me, it depends. Depends on what they're trying to do and achieve. If it's a brand refresh, that could potentially be quite quicker. But if it's a complete brand overhaul, that could be longer. But yeah, I wouldn't want to comfortably say it'll take X amount of time.
Yeah, and I guess each project must vary depending on how
size of the company
goes, and the client's time as well is a factor.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Some interesting points there. Let's go behind the scenes a little bit and talk through the process of a brand. So, Cam, how would you go through that process of kind of developing a brand?
It all starts with a brand workshop. So this is like a really fun kind of interactive thing that we do with clients. I like to give them exercises, get them like, it's good to get them out of their office. So they tend to come to us, but we can go like anywhere off site really.
Talk us through these exercises.
Yeah, no, star jumps? What were we thinking?
Yeah, just, well, obviously burpees to begin with, get the blood flowing.
You were doing some lunges in here earlier on, so to limber up for this.
It's how I like to start every meeting. Yeah.
Good shout.
Some people don't know what to do with it, but yeah.
Well, I didn't know when I came in the room. I wasn't sure what was going on.
So on a serious note, what would they be?
I've probably oversold it a little bit, but it's not just asking questions. It's kind of like breaking them out of like their traditional way of thinking. So I've done things with this deck of cards called a brand deck, and it's basically they're trying to sort of build their company or the business that they're wanting to be. So that's another important point. It's not who they are at the moment, it's who they're wanting to be. Yeah. So got this like little card game where we sort of like, it's got all these like sort of descriptor words and it's got opposites on each side. So we then try and build up this profile of this company, but imagining it as a person. So if your company is a person, how would they speak? How would they look? How would they act? How would they think?
Right.
So it sounds really weird. I'm probably not describing it that well, but yeah, it's just a fun way because everyone gets around the room, everyone gets in a little huddle, and then there's like, they start like arguing, like, oh no, I think we're like more like this or that. And it's just a really fun way to kind of like break the ice and just get everyone kind of like involved.
And you're getting them to think totally differently to probably how they are. And I imagine if you're in a business for a long time, you become a little bit single-sighted, don't you? Because everything's always done the same way, and you're trying to really get different thought process out of people.
Workshops are great because like a lot of clients walk away and they're like, oh God, we would never have like thought of this or spoken of this. So it's actually a really fun way to align themselves.
Yeah.
I feel like it gets like internally them thinking about what they are as well. Like sometimes I feel like we've found that a company the employees within it have totally different opinions of what they think a company should be. So it kind of gets their side like aligning more as well, which is like key to our side.
Yeah, and I suppose it's little things like when you're out and about networking or whatever you're doing, you want all your staff, all your employees to say the same thing about the business. How would you describe the business? You want everyone to be consistent. Okay, so discovery, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What happens next?
So after this discovery, that's where we kind of like go and sort of scramble together all our notes. There's usually a couple of us in the room from our side. So we're all taking individual notes. Then we kind of collect them together, and then we go through them. And basically, like what I'm looking for is the commonalities that they say. So the workshop can actually sometimes feel a bit repeatable, but you're kind of asking similar questions, but in a slightly different way, because you're trying to get like basically to the heart of like who they are and what they're wanting to be. Another good way of thinking about it is like, it's a tough question to ask, but it's like, it's finding your why. And it's like that Simon Sinek, like he talks about, he's got like a book about this and a really like great TED talk that I'd recommend you go watch. But he talks about a lot of companies can describe what they do and how they do it, but they really struggle to know why they do it. And it's not to make money. Like that's just a result of being in business. It's like, it's all about like finding the why. Like why do you exist beyond making money? So it can be different for every company. But yeah, so we go away and we try and find these commonalities, and then that's where like the design process starts. So for me, it can be quite messy and quite iterative.
Right. But that's probably common in a designer, I guess, the way you guys think.
Yeah, like my Illustrator artboard is just like a wash of just mess and thoughts. So I like to just dump it all out, and then I like slowly refine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you move to concept stage?
Yeah. So we kind of start together as a studio. I like to get everyone around the same table, and we kind of like talk about kind of like the vision and where we think it can go as a direction. But I don't like to kind of like pinpoint this is what it should be. So it starts with like, it's called stylescapes or mood boards, and each designer will go away after reading the notes, after we've kind of like discussed it as a workshop. We go away and then create, okay, so if we're designing for this persona, this person, go and create some visuals that will then appeal to that person.
Okay.
Then the other designer will do a different direction. I myself might do one, Mary might do one. And then we kind of come together and see what works, what we like. So we can then cherry pick different bits and pieces, but keeping in mind exactly who they're wanting to appeal to and who they're wanting to be.
And I guess that's all points that you've drawn from the discovery.
Yes.
Doing a little bit of auditing, who are their competitors, who's their audience, all of that kind of stuff.
For me, their competitors, yes, it's important to have them in mind, but I don't like focusing on them too much. I like to focus mainly on who they're attracting, so their audience. Right, okay. And some companies can have more than one audience. It can be quite tricky with some of our companies that we work with, because they've got, we have all this to us. You know, we've got all these different services, different products. So it's like, how can you find that one person? But there is usually a main person that you're trying to attract.
Right.
So that's part of the process.
Cool. This is mind-blowing stuff. This is really interesting. So you've got the team together. You're all working on different elements. And do you sometimes come up with various different looks and feel? Or what happens next? Sometimes
we all work to it to a certain point, and then like someone then leads it from there.
Yeah.
Or someone leads it from the beginning, with the others sort of feeding in. But it changes every project. There's no like one size fits all for each client.
As part of these brand projects, you present to the client and you go through, I guess, iterations, you go through rounds of amends and all of that. And once they're happy with the brand, what's the final piece? How does it work from there? Once they've kind of signed off, yes, that's what we want. What happens from there?
Before going into that, like just what I kind of want to like talk about, it's for me, like designing a brand, it's all about what you leave out as much as what you put in. So it's because it's so iterative, it's like we don't always know what it's going to look like by the end of it. Like sometimes you go in with a brand project and you kind of have an idea of what it's going to be, but a lot of the time I don't actually know what the end goal is going to look like. So it's kind of like this pot of clay that you're trying to like basically mold. And then as you get to the end, you're then like, yes, that feels like it fits. And the great thing with that is because you're always sort of going back to like your notes and trying to find the meaning. It's like, it's all done intentionally. It's not just like you've picked something because like, I like that font or I like that color. It's actually all got meaning, which actually then helps when it comes to presenting to the client. Yeah. Okay. So you're always going back to that point of reference from the start to, I guess, confirm that you're on the right track. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And then you present to the client. Yeah. Is that a fun part? I really enjoy the presenting part, but it is nerve-wracking. But what I like to do is I like to start my brand presentations with basically a summary of what we spoke about in the workshop. Right. So here's what you said. Yeah, okay. Here's what we found. Here was our interpretation of that. And then they're all like, oh, yeah, we did say that. And then that's where you then present your brand and what you've done. Because there's no reason for them not to like it, because it's then linked exactly to what they said. So they feel like you've heard them.
Sounds like it's very collaborative because they're involved so much, especially at the start. And you're working on everything they've done has informed the work that you guys create.
That's a huge part, like getting them along for the journey with you and making sure that they feel part of it. Absolutely.
So it all accumulates when you have a sign off on this brand that you've worked so hard for. And then what's the next piece? What's the last piece of this puzzle?
You take a deep breath and breathe.
Out of the bag.
High five from the studio.
Lots of high-fiving. A trip to the pub.
Yeah. Once the client loves it, hopefully, after the brand presentation, that's where we then go and create some guidelines for them. Right. So we then go away as a studio and sort of then create, it's basically like the rule book for how you can then use the brand. So, it can be anything from like how small you make the logo to placement of it, to sometimes you make more than one version, where that goes, because that's quite important, because quite a lot of times you just give the client the logo, they'll just plaster it anywhere, and then you're like, oh God, it's like...
So you'll have like reversed out options, things they can use on black, things that are versions that are transparent and all of that.
And even like style guides, so like how to lay out, if they've got like say brochures or like how their website or just social posts, anything like that, how to sort of lay that out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like trying to give them as much information as you can so that they can't go wrong.
Don't wreck it.
So anyone within their business can pick up this brand guide and they should then be able to apply your brand consistently.
Yeah.
Hopefully they stay with us as a client so we can then continue working with them to roll out the brand. But in theory, if that's where the work stops, you then have a document that they can then hand to someone else who hopefully knows what they're talking about or knowing what they're doing. And they can pick it up and then it's just all seamless.
And within these brand projects, I've heard you guys talking a lot about different kind of parts of the project. So there's the visual side and there's the whole messaging piece as well. So Poppy, talk us through some of the visual aspects that make up these brands and the work involved in that.
So like within the brand guidelines, I guess the visual sort of side would be obviously the logo, the fonts, the colours, and like kind of going off what Cam was saying, like these are all pieces to the puzzle that kind of make up that initial part of like the brand and who they are, and they should all kind of like feed back to that main goal. So yeah, like the guidelines will kind of cover colours and things like that. It's all kind of stuff that we think represents who they are. So yeah, give them as much detail as we can on what colours we think and specifics on the exact kind of colour codes, and then visuals can be like illustrations and stuff. So sometimes these can add to the overall sort of brand piece. It kind of creates something engaging and it adds to the whole like kind of brand story and stuff. So, and then in messaging is like equally as important. It's kind of like the voice of the brand that we've created. So yeah, that often is like detailed in the brand guidelines as well.
Yeah. So things like their tone of voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I guess here's what you're going to show, but it's also equally important is how are you going to say this?
Yeah. I talk about this a lot in the studio, but Burger King had a rebrand.
Right.
And I really like it.
Are you a fan of a Whopper?
I do like Burger King. It's not like... I like their rebrand more than their food, but they have like an interesting part of their like brand guidelines because they go into messaging a lot, like a lot more than I've seen other companies do, but they give examples of like what Burger King would say and what they wouldn't say. Like they wouldn't say like, oh, our burger's really like healthy. They would say like, our burgers are like amazing because blah, blah. So it like really, really like homes in on their exact tone of voice. It's the same as like characters on a show, I guess. Like in The Simpsons, there's like a list of things Bart would say and Bart what he wouldn't say, and it adds to like, you feel like you know Bart as a person.
Yeah.
You know that he wouldn't help Lisa, he would be a bad brother. I don't know if I'm going on a tangent a bit here.
Love a Simpsons reference.
Yeah, love that.
But yeah, so that, messaging is important. So as much detail as we can give on that helps to like give their personality and tone of voice.
So once we've finished with the brand, we're going to create a brand guide that will help them apply their brand visually, but also it'll help with their messaging and their tone of voice.
Yeah, ideally, that's the plan.
Okay, so we've covered what a brand is and the process involved in creating that brand. So I guess, why does branding matter?
For me, branding is so important because it's basically how you stand out in the world. It's how you connect with your audience. So I like to say marketing is why they come, but branding is why they stay.
Okay.
I like that.
So
Yeah.
it's all down to like, as individuals, like we're all sort of searching for meaning and how we kind of fit in with the world and how we kind of like communicate who we are outwardly. So it's why some people wear Rolexes over like a Casio. It's why like, some people like Nike over Adidas.
Yeah.
We're all trying to build this like profile of who we are and trying to communicate that to the world. Even people that like reject brand, they're still outwardly putting who they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So like it's tapping into that. That's why branding is so important and why it matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What should a client consider before embarking on a brand project, whether it's a new project they've got or whether they're just looking to refresh their existing brand? Any considerations?
I think really kind of figuring out who they are. We can help with that in the brand workshop for sure, but it would be really helpful if they knew who they are and why they're doing what they're doing.
So looking at long-term goals.
Yeah, goals a big one. Yeah, like knowing what they're looking to achieve. And, that can be, in a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, but having that overall vision is really important.
Yeah. Finding something they stand for, maybe something that other people can like align with, something they cared about is important.
What about auditing their own brand, or is that something we do?
We'll do that naturally anyway, even like instinctively as we're kind of like researching them and their marketplace, like we will do like an audit. And whether that sounds like fancy, but really it's just sort of getting an overview of where they're at, where the competitors are at, what the marketplace is like, and sort of considering who their audience is. So yeah, it's definitely part of it.
And I guess they should engage with a good agency that can help take it all off their hands.
Of
course.
It definitely helps. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next segment of this podcast, my personal favourite. It's our case study corner.
Wait a minute, Aimee. You mean case study corner?
Yep.
Did you love that, guys?
I love that.
Do you want to hear another version of that?
Always.
Hold on.
Case study corner.
We will
like
get
that one
real
more.
production for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that your real voice?
I have many
do you do
voices.
that?
I have so many voices, okay?
Right, let's get back on track. So Case Study Corner is a segment of the podcast where we like to get a case study and we bring it into the corner. So right, guys, I'm going to have to ask you to both move into the corner, please.
Shuffle, shuffle.
Go. Shuffling. Oh, look at you guys, nice and cozy in that corner. So,
Nice here.
what case study would you like to bring into Case Study Corner?
Well, one that stands out to me, it's the Stoltman brothers, their rebrand that we just recently...
This sounds like a strong brand to me.
Very strong.
You're right on the money there, Pete.
Okay. Stoltman Brothers, so there's been a bit of news about them just today. Well, at the time of recording this, there has been a bit of news.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they're currently over in South Carolina competing for the world's strongest man.
Amazing.
And, yeah.
Nice.
And both the brothers have just made it through to the finals.
Well done.
it's
That's
Great.
incredible.
Yeah.
And look, our clients are so varied. We work across a range of sectors. We work in the energy sector. We have a lot of retail clients, but this is like none other. The Stoltman Brothers.
Yeah, it was
cool.
it was a pretty cool one to work on for sure. Definitely a little bit different to what we've normally worked on, but yeah, it was a favorite.
How did it all come about? You were in the gym one time, right?
Yeah, so yeah, just I was in the gym, and then this guy called Tom just wanted some advice on how to lift weights. So
It's a small guy, Tom.
So we've got a piece of work for the Stoltman Brothers. Tell us about it.
yeah, the Stoltman brothers, they live up in Invergordon, so that's somewhere up in the Black Isle in Scotland, so it's up quite north. They've got like a really great story. They're two brothers. Well, there's three of them in total, but two of them are strong men. And they've just got this vision where they kind of, they've got this like feeling and need to leave a legacy, and they want to like inspire a generation.
Yeah.
And they really want to put strongman on the map, because there's this feeling throughout the sporting world that it's not taken that seriously.
Yeah.
When it's actually like a really physically enduring like sport, it's a really hard thing to get into.
Yeah.
And it's very competitive. So they've got this like really want and desire to put it on the map. So they came to us to sort of build their brand and help them kind of get that out there.
Yeah.
It was a really great one. So when it came to sort of crafting and designing their brand, obviously did a workshop with them. But one of the things that really stood out to me was they told this story about how this young boy who didn't have much confidence in himself, and he wouldn't go anywhere without his dad. His dad was his absolute like rock and comfort blanket.
Right.
One of the things that really sort of like inspired me when it came to sort of working on the brand was when the boy put on a Stoltman t-shirt, he felt confidence to go into a shop for the first time on his own.
What a great story.
Yeah.
So good.
So like that really helped sort of inform kind of how we approach this.
Okay.
So it's why it ended up looking the way it did.
So talk us through the brand. Talk us through how you approached it and how it looks, and give us the unpack this project.
Obviously, it needed to be strong. So kind of designed it in such a way that it almost looks like it could be like a superhero emblem. So
Okay.
like an S on the chest. type
Nice,
thing. And
yeah.
that was inspired directly from this story that they told us about the young boy.
Were
So-
you that young boy?
You can see right through me, Pete.
You've created this brand. What are there any other kind of assets or kind of pieces of merch, or what's the collateral that
Yeah.
kind of came with it?
So they do loads. They've got really high, they've got really sort of big vision with it. But actually, another point I should really talk about is their grandpa. They call them Opa. He came from Poland,
Wow.
and I actually think Stoltman means strong man.
man,
I think is
something
what they
like that.
directly translates into,
Okay.
No
or
way.
roughly. Yeah. So it's funny how that worked out. But the granddad came over to Scotland, didn't speak a word of English, landed in Invergarden, and he just became this like absolute like pillar of the community.
Oh.
And he was known for carrying like big logs under his arms. Like
This is
like,
incredible
yeah.
to hear.
Mhm.
when it came to kind of creating the sort of like brand story, like that was a huge part of it. Their granddad actually has a book called Trust Me, You Will Survive, because he was all about sort of building this resilience.
Yeah.
And you can totally see that in the brothers. Like they have this like resilience. Luke talks about it a lot in his social posts. So yeah, it's just one of the things that we did was we took that title of the book and sort of made that like part of their messaging, because it really fits within, like working out, like being strong, and like, like trust me, you will survive. Like no matter what you're going through, you will survive. So it's a really like strong story hook people can kind of like identify themselves within.
I guess they were like the dream client with how much stuff they had to like
Yeah.
make a story and a narrative with their brand, because they had a lot of like passion and stuff for like things they cared about and like things that they stood for that people could
Yeah.
align with. So it was good.
Yeah. And I think as well, what I loved about Stoltmans in general is they're obviously really big health and well-being advocates. And I think the brand and the merch and everything all round together in that story really creates like a community that people can get involved in. And and obviously strong man and being in the gym really helps your mental health. So I think it's a really nice all-rounder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
I've got to say, Cam, you mentioned earlier that sometimes you can get a bit nervous presenting a brand to the Stoltman brothers. I mean, if you get that wrong,
Yeah.
Throwing over your shoulder.
Yeah, it's actually funny. Like I was a bit nervous when I first was going to meet them.
yeah.
Just because, you got this like perception of how people are, but they're like the nicest guys. They're like so down to earth. They're so humble, and they're just like so welcoming.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know why, but I thought it'd be the complete opposite of who they were. But
Right.
yeah, they're just such nice guys.
That's heartwarming to hear. And I guess finally on this case study, was there any kind of points, any feedback or any anecdotes about kind of how they felt about it all?
They were quite taken aback by just what we picked up on and like what we listened to, and then how we kind of like implemented that into the brand. Like, so it came down to the title of the book being like a big part, like even down to like textures, because Opa was known for carrying these logs. So like there's like a lot of like wooden textures within it and stuff. There's like sort of stuff like that. And it's not
The
necessarily
colours were kind of referenced from the landscape of like where they're from and stuff, weren't they?
it like complements like the Highland sort of like landscape.
Yeah.
Their town in Invergarden. So yeah, we took inspiration from everywhere. It's these things that you introduce into your brand and give it meaning. And not everyone's going to get it straight away, but when people buy into your brand and become part of your story, it's like no one really cares about your story. But if we can like attach ourselves to your story, that's where like brands really grow. So it's like adding in these like subtle little notes, like the wooden textures and the colors, for example, that really like help a brand sing. So yeah, it was an amazing project to work on.
It certainly sounds like it was the dream project. Thank you so much for bringing that into Case Study Corner.
Let's take a bit of a step back from speaking about brand. Pete, why are the Jelly Babies here?
Right, well, there is a bit of a, they're great brands, Red Bull and Jelly Babies,
firstly.
but Cam, I was hoping to kind of push them onto you a little bit and just kind of hoping that you would, basically I want you to pick up a few bad I walked past your desk yesterday, Cam, and I couldn't believe what I saw.
It's all making sense now.
No.
Yeah.
What is it?
Cam was eating a bell pepper
Oh, yeah.
like it was an apple.
I've seen
I've never seen that before. What?
What is wrong with that, Pete?
That's a very healthy.
Full of vitamins.
It's good
Yeah,
for you.
I've never seen someone
Crunchy.
eat a pepper like
And
an
the
apple.
seeds. What did you do with the seeds?
Spin them.
Oh,
Spin them in.
okay.
Give them to Betty Hope.
You live a very healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Your body is a temple.
Well, I have just drank a can of Red Bull, so I'm not that healthy.
It's not perfect.
Poppy, on the other hand, I saw her snaffling into the last bag of Chipstix.
Yeah, that was noted.
Oh, let me off, Pete.
I felt a
Out
little
with
bit. I felt a little bit guilty because I tucked into some Cajun cheesy fries yesterday at
Oh,
lunchtime.
cute.
How'd that feel in the afternoon?
Didn't feel good at all.
Well, this is the problem,
Comes
isn't
back to
it?
bite you.
Oh,
They were a little bit stodgy.
Yeah.
I know it's bad,
So
is it?
on you
Worth
go. Dig into those jelly babies, and
You.
we'll go and have chips at lunchtime. So maybe as part of our fashion podcast, Cam, we can do health tips as well.
Of course.
What I thought we could do, because we're almost close to wrapping up, I thought it'd be good fun to test Cam and Poppy on how well you know your brands.
Uh-oh.
So, are you up for a few quick fire questions here? Aimee and I are going to throw you some strap lines, and you're going to,
Yeah.
as fast as finger first, hit the
Yep.
buzzer.
Oh, where's the buzzer?
Did we get a
Do
buzzer?
we just like,
Wait a minute. Where's the buzzer? Hold on.
that was a bad buzzer.
Oh.
Oh.
Right, let's not do buzzers. Just shout your answer. We're going to say the strap line. You're going to say the brand. Aimee, do you want to start?
Yeah. I'm loving it.
McDonald's.
Oh, McDonald's.
The happiest place on earth.
Disney.
Yeah.
Finger looking good.
KFC.
Sorry.
What did you
I was trying to
say?
say Burger King and then I realised it was wrong.
Burger King on your mind.
Next up, the ultimate driving machine.
Oh, like Audi or BMW?
BMW.
Think different.
Apple.
Of course you would get that.
Yeah.
Because you're worth it.
Maybe.
L'Oreal.
L'Oreal, of course you would
Cam
know
knew
that.
It's the hair.
So the hair.
You've like cheated, can't
Melts in your mouth, not in your hands.
Ooh, that sounds...
Oh, I don't know.
Weird.
No, I didn't know that this was what it was.
What melts in your mouth? But not in your
Not in your
hands.
hand.
Yeah.
Maltesers?
So close.
Oh.
So very,
You're on
very
the right
close.
tracks.
They would melt in your hand.
Oh, like aero bubbles?
Also begins with an
Also
M.
melt in your hands.
M and...
M&M's.
Oh, wow, you got it right. Well done.
Wait, what was it? M&M's?
M&M's apparently. I
They don't
don't know if
melt in
that
your
was
hand,
there.
surely.
Nah.
Melts, no, but it says
eventually.
melt in your mouth, not in your hands. Because I guess the hard candy shell.
Oh, that's melting in my hand.
Guys, I think that it's very obvious that you both know your brands very, very well. That is it. It's almost time to wrap things up before we finish up, though, Aimee. We've got a lot of good takeaways
Yep.
out of the podcast today. Do you want to do a recap?
I will, yes. Lots of good stuff. So, firstly, it's really important to know your position in the marketplace. You have to ensure you apply your brand consistently, again, with the guidelines after we've created it. Use storytelling and establish your tone of voice. Again, you can get in the brand guidelines that we create. It's really important as well to be authentic. If it's a new brand, engage with an agency that has delivered successful brand projects like ourselves. Just putting that out there. And then one final thing that Cam mentioned was know your why. So like, why are you here? And that will really help us create a really good brand for you.
Yeah, so there we go. That was so much fun talking about brand. I feel we could just do that and we could talk about a whole bunch of things
Yeah.
and we can go on and on and on.
It's good fun.
Look, don't forget, if you like what you've been listening to, please hit the follow button on this podcast. And if you'd like to hear more about anything we've spoke about, just drop us a line. Aimee, where can we be found?
Yep. So you can find us on Instagram at Mearns Gill. Check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, or online. Just search for Mearns and Gill.
Great. So that's
Nice.
it. It's the
Awesome.
end of the
Thank
brand
you.
podcast.
Having
Cam,
us.
Poppy,
Yeah.
thank you so much
Great.
for being a part of this today. Next week, we're going to be following on from brand. We're going to be looking a little closer into the design principles. But that is next time. See you all next week.
See you next time.
Bye.